If you're unsure about what job you should be doing or what career you should be pursuing, then don't worry, you're not alone. A recent survey published in The Independent shows that over 60% of UK workers dread going back to work after a weekend break. And a similar poll by YouGov found that only 17% of people actually claim to love their jobs. And from my own experience, I've certainly found that a lot of people that I know in their 30s, 40s, 50s and even older who still aren't totally sure that they're on the right career path and haven't quite found out what it is that they're supposed to be doing. So if, like a lot of people out there, you're struggling to decide what job you should enter or what career path you should take up, then I've put together 4 questions to ask yourself that should help you on deciding a career that's right for you. The reason I made this video is because choosing a career is very difficult, and that is why so many people struggle with it. Especially if you're young and you've not had much experience of the working world. How are you supposed to pick a job or career when you've not had any first-hand experience of the jobs that are out there? So before I get started, here is a quick outline of the questions I'm going to talk about and also some of the other important topics I'm going to cover in the video. And I also just want to quickly say that I don't claim to have all of the answers on this subject. It's a very big topic, and of course you should take in as much advice from many different sources as possible before you make any big decisions. And also, if you find yourself stressing out about this decision, try not to put too much pressure on yourself, because these days it's quite common for people to move around in their careers and do different jobs over the years. So if you find yourself in a job that you don't like too much, you always have the option to change. So here are the 4 questions that you need to ask yourself when you're picking a job or career. Number 1 is, will you enjoy the job? And within that, we're going to look at your interests and passions, we're going to look at the impact of the job, and we're going to look at the work-life balance of the job. Number 2 is, will the job pay me enough money? And within that, we're going to look at salary or rates, and we're also going to look at progression. Number 3 is, will you be good at the job? And within that, we're going to look at your natural skills, and we're also going to look at your personality. Number 4 is, what qualifications do you need for the job? And within that, we're going to look at what qualifications you need now to enter the job, and also what qualifications you're willing to do later down the line as the job progresses. And at the very end of the video, we're going to take a look at what to do if you're still unsure. So if you've watched this video and you've watched lots of other videos, you've done hours or weeks of research and you're still unsure what to do, what career to choose, what job to pick, then I'm going to give you 3 tips of what you could potentially do in that situation. Firstly, let's take a look at, will you enjoy the job? Now, this is a very important factor in deciding a job or a career, but it's one that gets overlooked quite a lot. If you're going to be spending 7 or 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, 40, 50 weeks a year in a job, then it's got to be something that you find at least mildly interesting. Ideally something that you find very interesting. Because if you're not enjoying the work you're doing, you're going to lack motivation, you're going to be bored, and ultimately you're going to be miserable for quite a lot of your time during that job. And I can say this from some personal experience, because when I left school, I only went after jobs that I thought would pay well without considering if I would enjoy them or not. And this led to me spending the first few years of my working life working in jobs that didn't really interest me, so I had no desire to progress within them. And as a result, that hindered my career progression, and it also meant that those first few years of my working life were pretty boring, to be honest. Now, I'm not saying that you have to be jumping for joy every time you get out of bed for work in the morning, because there are lots of other factors you have to consider as well. But I do personally think that you need to take some enjoyment from the work you do, or it's not going to work out in the long run. And the first point to consider within this question is, what are your interests and passions? This is obviously a great start, because if you can find some way of working within things that you already have an interest in or passion for, then you're off to a very good head start. You can start to assess these by making a list of all of your current hobbies or things that interest you when you're watching television or documentaries. And also think about what kind of subjects interested you at school. Did you like to draw? Did you like to write stories? Did you like to solve maths problems? Did you like to play on the sports teams? And when you're out and about and you notice a topic that interests you, or you see something that sparks your interest, make a note of it and just keep adding to this list of the things that interest you or you're passionate about. And of course, if you have things in your life that you're really, really passionate about, then make sure you put those things at the top of the list. And then once you have that list, you can then start looking at what career choices are out there that will enable you to work with these things that interest you. So to give you a few examples of how this would work, if you're somebody who enjoys art and design, then you could start to look towards creative jobs like a graphic designer or photographer. If you're somebody who enjoys fixing things or working with their hands, then you can look towards more technical jobs like engineer or mechanic. If you enjoy solving mathematical problems, then you could look at more number-based work like accounting, data analysis, or even IT. And you can also look at things from an industry perspective as well. And what I mean by that is that every job out there sits within a particular industry. For example, if you have an accountant who works for a supermarket company, then their profession is accountant, but their industry is retail. If you have a project manager who works for a building company, then their profession is project management and they work within the construction industry. So let's say, for example, you're a big sports fan, but you're not particularly physically active, so you don't actually want to play sports for a living, or you don't want to be a personal trainer or a coach. So what you could then do is look for different jobs or professions within the sports industry. So for example, you could become a writer for a big sports website, or you could work in the marketing department for a big sports club. That way you can still maintain some connection to the things that interest you, even if the job itself isn't something that falls directly into your interest categories. And another point to look at within enjoyment of the job is what is the impact of the job on the world, and how much does that matter to you? Now, you may want to feel that your work really makes a difference in the world. You might want to do something that ends poverty, improves education, saves lives, or you may just be happy to know that your job provides an important service to people and it keeps you employed. Now, I can't really give too much advice on this subject because there's no wrong or right answer. You just need to think about what's important to you personally and what will make you feel best. And the third part of job enjoyment to consider is work-life balance. Work-life balance basically means how you divide your time and energy between work and the rest of your life. So things like going out with family, meeting up with friends, going on holidays, etc. Some jobs will require a lot more time and dedication than others, and some really high pressure jobs will even be hard to switch off from when you get home from work. For example, if you're a journalist who covers stories about poverty all across the world, then you're likely to be spending months away from home at a time when you're working. And when you do have breaks from work, you're probably going to find it very hard to switch off from that kind of work due to the sort of things that you're dealing with every day. On the other hand, if you are an accountant working for a clothes retailer, then your hours are pretty much going to be 9 to 5. There'll be minimal travel involved, and you shouldn't have too much trouble forgetting about work and switching off when you get home. Again, there's no right or wrong answers in this case. It's just about figuring out what works for you and your personal circumstances. Also, you need to factor in some of the previous elements I've already talked about when thinking about this, because if you're working in a job that you really enjoy, for example, then you might not mind working 10 hours a day, 7 days a week. But on the other hand, if you're not so interested in the work that you do, then you'll probably want to work a lot less hours and dedicate more of your time to your personal interests outside of work. It's all about finding the right balance that works for you. The second question to ask yourself when deciding on a job or a career is, will the job pay me enough money? Money is of course a crucial factor when deciding upon a job or career, because money will play a big part in some big decisions in your life. For example, where you can afford to live and how much you can afford to spend on things like eating out, holidays, and all the other things we enjoy doing. But money alone will not solve all of your problems, so you need to balance all of these factors along with the elements I've already mentioned in the video and the ones I've yet to cover. And you should also bear in mind that how you manage your money will have an effect on what choice you make here. Because for example, if you're somebody who's very good at managing their money and they know how to budget, to save and invest, then you can make your money go a lot further than somebody on the same salary who doesn't know how to save properly and blows all of their money at the weekends. Now, money management is of course a big topic that I could cover in more detail in another video later, but for now I'm just going to put a couple of links to some good personal finance YouTube channels in the description below, and of course if you do want me to make a video on that topic, then please leave a comment. And the first part of this question is, what is the salary or the rate of the job? The amount of money that different jobs pay varies hugely, and the way that you'll see job pay advertised will usually either be salary or rate. Salary is the amount of money that jobs pay per year, so you might see a job advertised for £25,000 or 40k, and rate is the amount of money that a job pays either per hour or per day. So you'll see these advertised, for example, as £10 an hour or £100 a day. And both of these figures that you'll see advertised are what the job pays before tax is deducted, so it's not the final amount of money that you actually take home in your bank account. If you work in the UK, or in fact pretty much any developed country in the world, you'll have to pay taxes on the money you earn. And normally this will be deducted at source from your employer before the money is paid to you. So despite the fact that job pay is usually advertised as pre-tax earnings for the hour, day or year, the figure you actually need to focus on is what is the amount you'll take home after tax every month. And the reason that you need to do that is because pretty much all personal bills are paid monthly, especially the big ones. For example, rent and mortgages are paid monthly, utility bills like electricity and water, phone bills, subscription services like Netflix and Sky. So for this reason, it's very important to know how much money a job will actually put into your bank account at the end of every month. So if you have a salary or a rate for a job and you want to figure out how much it's going to actually pay into your bank account every month, you can do this really easily by going to a website called salarycalculator.co.uk. I'll put a link for it in the description, and I'm sure there are alternate ones out there for those of you who are outside of the UK. You simply enter the salary or rate into the top bar here, scroll down and click calculate. Then it provides you with this table which breaks down all the tax you'll pay, and crucially this figure, the amount of money you would actually take home from the job at the end of each month. And when you know this figure, you can really start to understand what the pay will actually get you in real terms. If we look at the example here, if a job is paying a salary of around £25,000, that means you'll take home £1,720 every month. So then you can start to get an idea of what the job will allow you to do in terms of the type of property you could afford to rent, how much you could afford to spend on bills and food shopping, and how much you have left over to spend on yourself and save every month. So this will give you a good idea of the kind of lifestyle that a job could afford you, but it's also important to remember that most jobs start off at relatively low pay when you're looking at entry-level or junior jobs, but this pay will gradually increase as you become more experienced and skilled over the years. And that brings me on to the next factor to consider within how much the job will pay you, and that is progression. When you're researching careers to enter, it's not only important to know what the job will pay you now, but it's arguably even more important to understand how much the job will be paying you in 5, 10, 15, 20 years time or even later. So you need to be asking yourself, where do I want to be in 5 or 10 years time? Maybe you want to move out of your parents, maybe you want to move from rented accommodation to become a homeowner, maybe you want to be living in a different country. Now, these are obviously big personal questions and not things that you're going to be able to answer straight away, but it's definitely worth having a think about them when you're looking at what career to take up. Because once you have some idea of where you want to be in the future, you can then start looking at some of the jobs that you're assessing and ask yourself, do these jobs have the potential to help me to achieve my long-term goals? And if you want to find out about how certain jobs pay and how they progress, I'll put some links to some good career sites in the description below. And you can also look at the job sites to get a bit more of an idea of what the jobs you're looking at will pay. So you can start off by looking at the junior jobs and seeing what the salaries and rates are, then work your way up to some of the more experienced jobs and see what those jobs pay when they're looking for people who have got 5, 10, 15, 20 years experience or doing managerial roles within that sector. And as always, when it comes to researching these things, I would recommend that you check out as many sources as possible to get as much information as you can on the topic. The third question to ask yourself when thinking about a career or job to take up is, will I be good at it? Because if you're good at something, A, you're more likely to enjoy it, which takes us back to the first question. And B, if you're good at your job, then you're going to be able to provide a better service to your employer, to your customers or clients or whoever it might be. And that means you're going to be able to progress faster in the job, to get promotions quicker and ultimately do better in the long run and potentially earn more money as well. Of course, it's quite difficult to know if you'll be any good at a job if you've never done it before, but when researching jobs, I would recommend thinking about the following 2 points. 1, your natural skills, and 2, your personality. So if we look at natural skills first, what I mean by that is things that you've taken an interest in from an early stage in life and you've developed some early skills. So this could be school subjects that you've really excelled in, or it could be things outside of school work that you've taken an interest in, like cooking, writing, playing sport, or playing an instrument. It could be literally anything. So you could perhaps just make a list of these things that you're already good at, and then once you start looking at jobs, you can start to see if they require any of the things that you're already good at. So for example, if you're really good at maths and you've got a good head for figures, then you might find that you have the right skills for jobs in data, finance, accounting, IT. Or if you're the kind of person who's always building things or fixing things around the house, then you might find that you have the right kind of skills for a more physical hands-on job like being an electrician or a mechanic. And your personality can also play a very big part in how suitable you'll be for a job and how much enjoyment you'll take. For example, if you're a very outgoing person and you like to chat to people a lot, then you might find that you're very good in customer-facing roles like customer service, sales. And if you're the sort of person who likes to be outdoors a lot and be physically active, then you might not be well suited for a job where you're sat behind a desk all day. There are so many different aspects of your personality and your skill set that will affect how you perform in a job and how much you'll enjoy it. So it's worth having a really good think about all of them. And I'm not saying that you should avoid jobs that you'll find difficult or that will challenge you, because of course, if you want to progress and grow in life, then obviously you do need to challenge yourself and you do need to step out of your comfort zone from time to time. But it will be beneficial to find a job that at least has some elements that reflect your natural skills and your personality. And the fourth and final question on this list is, what qualifications do you need? You probably hear a lot about qualifications when you're looking for jobs, with lots of different opinions flying around. Some people think that having lots of qualifications is absolutely essential in finding a good job, whereas other people think that qualifications are a total waste of time and you're better off getting work experience as opposed to taking lots of exams. Some jobs will absolutely require you to have qualifications in the UK. For example, if you want to be a teacher or a lawyer in the UK, then you'll need to have a degree to do either of those jobs. But there are lots of jobs out there that aren't so strictly regulated and you don't need any qualifications at all to get them. Again, there's no right or wrong answer on this topic. It's really just about finding out what works for you. Firstly, you need to look at what qualifications you have now. So if you're considering getting into a career or a job and they're asking for a qualification to get one of those entry-level jobs, then of course you absolutely have to have that qualification. And if you don't already have it, you need to weigh up the pros and cons of getting that qualification. For example, if you need to retake a few GCSEs in order to boost your grades to make them high enough to get a certain job, then that shouldn't be a massive problem. You can study in your own time, and the cost of doing that will probably be only in the tens or low hundreds of pounds. But if the jobs you're looking at require you to have a degree, then that's something you need to think a little bit harder about, because a degree will take you at least 3 years and cost several thousands of pounds. Now that's obviously a lot of time and money, but if it gives you access to a job that ticks all of your boxes and it's going to unlock lots of future earnings potential and happiness for you, then it's probably worth making the sacrifice. However, if it's for a job that you have any uncertainties about at all, then it's probably not worth taking that risk until you can get a clearer picture as to whether the job is going to be right for you or not. Personally, I think that when it comes to degrees, you need to be 100% sure about the profession you're going to enter with that degree before you sign up for university. Because if you do a free university course and spend thousands of pounds, and then you find out that you don't actually like that job once you start it, then obviously that's a lot of time and money that could have been better spent elsewhere. So I would say if you're thinking about getting a job that requires a degree, but you're not totally sure that you want to get into that job, then you could perhaps try working in that industry within a different profession to get some kind of idea of what the job is like. So for example, if you're thinking about doing a teaching degree and becoming a teacher, but you want to test the waters out a bit, what I would suggest is getting a job as a teaching assistant, which doesn't require you to get a degree. Do that for a few months, see how you find working in a school, and then make a decision as to whether or not you actually want to do a degree to get that job. Or as another example, if you're thinking about becoming a lawyer, but you're not 100% sure that you actually want to commit to the degree yet, or you don't know enough about the job, then you could perhaps work as a paralegal or an admin assistant within a legal company. And what that would do, it would give you exposure to working within a legal environment. You'd actually be working alongside lawyers, so you could learn a lot more about the industry, about the profession, and then from there you can actually make a much more informed decision as to whether or not you want to invest the time and money into doing a degree in order to get a job as a lawyer. And the second part of this question is, how much studying for qualifications are you willing to do in the future? Some jobs don't require any qualifications at all. Some jobs require qualifications in the early stages, but then they don't have any exams or studies later on. But there are some jobs out there that require years of ongoing study in order to get the qualifications needed to carry out the job and in order to keep progressing and getting pay rises. Architects, for example, have to study for 7 years to become fully qualified, and accountants have to study continually throughout their career and take regular exams every few years. Now, all of this study can of course pay dividends because it often leads to better job prospects and increased rates of pay, but you have to consider that all of this study will affect your work-life balance. So again, you just need to weigh this factor up against all of the other factors that we've run through so far. Now that brings me to the end of the questions. So just to recap, the 4 questions that you need to ask yourself when you're looking at deciding on a job or a career are: will I enjoy the work? Will it pay me enough money? Will I be good at it? And what qualifications do I need? And if you do hours or weeks of research after watching this video and you're still unsure about what job or career to choose, which is absolutely fine because it's a big decision to make and lots of people take years finding out what they want to do. If you're still unsure, then here are 3 things that you can do. Number 1, you can try temping, which if you've never heard of it before means signing up with a temporary staffing agency. These agencies provide temporary staff to companies when they need extra staff to cover busy periods or to cover sickness. So once you sign up with them and you're on their books, they can then send you out to do days or weeks of work at various different companies. So as a result, you get experience of working for lots of different companies in lots of different industries, different job types, and this will give you a much better idea of the type of work that you enjoy doing. Option number 2 is to join a big company. Now, if you get a junior role like an office administrator or an office junior within a big national or global company that has multiple departments like marketing, IT, finance, HR, then you'll get exposure to all of those different departments in the business. And then as you progress in your career, you can look to move into those departments that interest you the most and start to progress your career that way. You can even find some companies who offer graduate schemes or other junior staff schemes where they will take you in at entry level and they will rotate you around the business. So you might do a month in marketing, a month in IT, a month in HR, and then after you've worked in all the different departments, you'll then get a decision as to the area you want to progress in. So that's another thing to do if you're a bit unsure about the area you want to move into. Number 3 is you could take some time out. Now, if you're in a fortunate position to have a bit of money saved up and you don't have any big responsibilities back at home, then you could always just take 6 months or a year out to do something that you've always wanted to do. So it could be backpacking around Asia, it could be working on a cruise ship. It really doesn't matter what it is, as long as it's something that you enjoy and something you've always wanted to do. Not only can these trips be a lot of fun, but they can be great learning experiences where you can pick up skills and meet interesting people. And also these days, a lot of new modern companies do actually quite like to see things like that on the CV. So that brings me to the end of the video, and as always, I hope you found it really helpful. If you have, I'd really appreciate it if you could hit the like button, drop us a comment below, and also subscribe to the channel for more videos around finding the jobs that you want and maximizing your income. And if you do have any questions about some of the topics I've covered here, or you want me to make some more detailed videos covering some of those topics, then please leave a comment below. I do read them and I will get back to you. So thanks very much for watching, and best of luck with your job search.